Hi, Martijn, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you. How
Yeah,
are you?
I'm fine too, thank you. Well, new album, Dark Waters. When was this album title being thought of?
Um, I think it was at the beginning of last year. Yeah, so when the first songs were pouring in, so to say, then also the vibe is taking shape, and then you also going to think about the album titles. And Robin, my wife, is doing most of the lyrics of this album, and yeah, because she's a native speaker, she's American, and it's a huge coincidence and blessing that that I'm able to ask her. I would never have dreamt of doing that in the past, but she's very much into lyrics, into books, into English language. So it was a very, automatic thing to ask her. And she came up with the title.
And what was the inspiration behind the title? Is it something on normally you say, well, Dark Waters can also be about human people.
Yeah.
Is it something? Is it something to do with you?
Well, it's indeed a double meaning, and it's more about Delain as an entity, that it came from deep down, so to say. It almost drowned.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we almost wouldn't have sit here to talk about a new album, because of course we had a big split, and fortunately we are here. So Delain came back to the surface from dark waters. That's a little bit the metaphor. Yeah.
And I think that the travel that you've done is also you can also, if you read the lyrics, and you can also see that that's the travel that you've done since,
Yeah.
well, since disbanding Delain in 2000. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, 21. Well, how hard was it for you? If you look back on the split, did you ever think, well, this is the end of Delain?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, either the end of Delain or me as part of Delain as well. It was a huge process, and there were definitely moments where I thought, okay, we're done. And also the previous members thought the same thing. Charlotte also at one point thought, oh, well, perhaps we can do one more tour and then close this chapter, and then go on with our separate musical adventures. But it all went differently, and here we are.
Yeah. It took you, I think, 4 or 5 months to announce, well, the new Delain. If you focus on those 4 or 5 months, how did the new Delain come about?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, at first I thought perhaps Delain can still continue as a project, since it started as a project with the first album, and because I'm in this musical scene, for a music scene, for a very long time. I am blessed with a large network of people I know, friends, musicians that I can ask to help, because I thought, the chance to get a band together that makes sense and that does justice is very slim. And but around this time, and that's also what I announced, after it was clear that we would split up, then I had to think about what to do, but it wasn't announced yet. That's first I thought about the project form, but I also stayed in touch with previous band members, Sander, a drummer, and Ronald, a guitar player, and also Rob. Rob is the current bass player of Epica, but he was in Delain at the first couple albums, the April Rain era. So there was already a lot of Delain DNA present, so to say. And so I thought, let's continue with them and then work with guests. But then Sander and Ronald said, why not continue as a band? And I started to think about that, and yeah, I had to conclude that there was indeed so much essence of Delain present, that I thought, yes, we could pursue this. And then we started our search for the new members, Ludo, our bass player, and Diana, our singer.
Yeah. How much time did that take? The new finding the new members.
Yeah, also quite some time. That took half a year, I think, at least a couple months. But I think half a year. And yeah, that was of course the big challenge, because we had been blessed with musicians that were really good, and it's not easy to find replacements for that. Well, I searched online on YouTube channels where people do covers, and I asked people around me if they knew people, and at a certain point I stumbled upon the YouTube channel of Diana, and she did covers of Within Temptation there, and also covers of Nightwish, but also pop, Christina Aguilera, and a lot. And I really loved her voice. Wow, I should write down her name, and at a certain point, perhaps I should contact her. And within a week after that, I saw a remark on Instagram from her saying, "Hey, if you ever need a singer, then you can always contact me," with a wink face. And I thought this was not an entirely serious remark, but more like a funny one, a nice one. And I thought, this is such a coincidence, or is it? If you believe in science, or and I thought, okay, let's contact her. And she did not expect it at all. I contacted her, and we had a really nice talk, and so I sent her. We agreed that I would send her some material, and I was a little bit mean with the material I sent, because I chose deliberately one of the most difficult songs, or actually two of the most difficult songs in our repertoire, where the vocal range goes everywhere, and asked her to sing on that. So I got it back within a day. So I was already surprised about that. And when I started playing it, it knocked me off my chair. And I was so surprised, and it fitted the music so incredibly well, and that I decided to invite her over to the Netherlands to meet up with Sander and Ronald, and here we are now.
And what is so striking for you about her voice? What did you like the first time you heard her sing the covers, and then secondly when she did the two songs that you sent her?
Well, first of all, her voice. I like her character. There's so much control, and it's funny. I had to think of Disney a little bit, where you have when like where they have songs and really good singers, and it was just so good. And it's also a very friendly voice, and I could imagine that on Delain music. And then I got back the material later, and I was actually astonished, surprised how much it fitted, and of course it's I already saw a lot of remarks. People said, yeah, she has a very similar voice to Charlotte, and partially I totally agree with that. There are some characteristics that are similar, but I also think that people didn't. Still, right now we have released 3 singles now. They have not heard her complete capacity in singing, she's also very good with soft versus power, so contrast.
So without being negative, but what is the difference for you between her voice and Charlotte's voice?
Well, Charlotte's is more rough, which gives Charlotte a lot of character. It's a more rough voice, and that's not a negative thing. No, on the contrary, that gives a certain quality and character. Diana is more refined, so it's and that makes it different. So I'm totally not saying that, oh, this one is better or that one is better. No, but it is different. And of course, indeed, there are also similarities. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Ludo, how did you find Ludo?
Ronald actually did. He stumbled upon Ludo online and contacted him. And Ludo, because Ludo has his own bands, more in the death metal scene, bands called Nightland and the Modern Age Slavery. But there he plays guitar, and he's also the front man of Nightland, and so he also does growling and really, really well. It's one of the best growling I've heard. If you're into that stuff, of course, because it's very specific. We asked him if he would also be able to play bass guitar, and if he would be willing, and he said, I would love to. And he came over, and there was an immediate connection, and we're so happy to have him aboard. And that also gives a lot of more talent into the group. Yeah.
What was the first song that you actually did for this new album?
Actually, do you mean the release or the writing? The
writing.
Well, actually, we did that before the band was there. So I simply kept writing with my writing partner, Guus Eikens. We write together already since the beginning of Delain's existence, and I know him for years. When I was with Temptation, I actually we supported his band Orphanage, so we go back 500 years. We always write everything together. And it's a really great musical connection, supplementing and complementing each other with that. So we just kept writing. And at a certain point, of course, the band also took shape. So this album was being made during the process of the new band taking shape.
Yeah. And what was the first song that you said, well, this is the... Oh, first of all, how do you write with each other? What does each member of the writing team bring? What do you bring and what does Guus bring?
Well, Guus is a very gifted guitar player. He's really good in writing guitar riffs. I can write guitar riffs now and then, but by far not as good as Guus does. So he's really good at that. And I'm more the guy who brings in the more how do you say the melodic middle part, so to say, and together we do the verses and the choruses, and then I mold the song together in structure most of the time. And so it can happen that he has an idea and we start working on that. It can happen that I have an idea, and we also do writing camps. We went to Spain, for example, to write for 2 weeks because my parents have a house there. And we wrote also in the Netherlands. So we had some writing camps, so to say. And then of course you have Robin, who when we had the music and the melody lines, you gave it to Robin, or later in the stage also to Diana, and then the whole song would take shape.
Yeah. The first song actually written for this album, you say, well, this is the first song that we did with the band, and that you decided, well, this has to be on the new album.
Sorry, one more time.
What is the first song that you decided, well, this has to be on the new album?
Well, actually, we don't have songs laying around that don't make the album, because early in the process, if we have an idea and we don't like it, then we ditch it immediately. So it doesn't get a chance to mature. But the first song that was really completed and felt like, okay, this is really the band here, and that was the song "The Quest and the Curse," and it was also our first single we released in summer last year. Yeah.
There's a line from that song: "I fear that I've forgotten how to fly." Was that the sentiment that you had maybe with, well, can we restart the Delain or something?
Yes, because it had been a long time too, because also COVID came in between. So there were moments when I thought, okay, the band is no more, and also we're in COVID. What's going to happen? You know, am I going to continue my music career or not in general? So yeah, you know, there are moments that you indeed almost forget that you are a musician and that this is what I do. This is my passion.
Yeah, I think when you take a look at the lyrics, it's all about, well, going to dark places and resurrecting, and then, well, I think that's the struggle that you've had lyric-wise, right?
Absolutely. And of course, Robin experienced my struggle with that. And so it's actually very beautiful that thanks to her, I was able to get she gave me a voice with that. And because I could never do it myself.
Is there one song lyric-wise that you say, well, that when she wrote that song about the feeling that I had, it really moved me in a way that, well, she's looking towards you and writing about you, but it's her interpretation, of course.
Yeah, it's her interpretation. I think this song,
yeah,
also a song like Invictus, although it's not all reality in Invictus. Sometimes it's also a mixture where you get inspired and then fantasy comes in as well.
I know, but there's a line in Invictus that I wrote down. You can never take what I've achieved, never. Is that something that you needed to hear?
No, that has been dramatized, so to say. That's one of those examples. But of course, in this process, there were moments that I felt that I felt robbed, so to say, because it was almost a moment that I would leave, and I even offered the previous band members to continue at a certain point. So I think the inspiration from Robin comes from there. Yeah.
You said there was a question, the curse. If she writes the lyrics, when does she give you the lyrics? Is it when the song is finished, all the lyrics, or maybe per line, or how?
No, when it's finished. So she asked me to sit down and plays the song and sings it for me, and then we go through it, and that's how it goes. But at that moment, it's actually not a very how do you say, not a very romantic process, because the first, I sit down as a producer and listen to how the sounds of the words sound, and if they gel with the music. And only after that, the meaning also sinks in. And of course, he explains it as well, but that comes after that. Yeah.
Well, you said the question occurs, and Invictus, the song that you say, well, that she... that moved you. Can you be a bit more precise? What did move you about the question, the curse, the lyrics that you wrote?
Yeah, also only the title already, because to me it has a lot of what's the English word? The Dutch word would be lading.
Death, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I think it was one of the most difficult periods of my life, if not the most difficult period of my life. So that had a lot of meaning for me. It was a huge quest, and also sometimes the burden feels like a curse. And of course, it sounds very heavy, and of course, in daily life, it's not always like that. But in general, you know, it's being a musician is I feel privileged that I'm able and allowed to do this, but it's also hard and heavy. You know, it's also a very uncertain life. And also when you create something that comes from the heart and you give it to the world, so to say, yeah, people can do anything with it they want. And of course, that's part of your job. But sometimes, of course, that it makes you vulnerable at times. Yeah.
Underland, the last song of the album. I thought it was a nice metaphor. Don't follow the black rabbit. What is the black rabbit?
That's a good question. That's a really good question for Robin. She's downstairs, so I could shout downstairs, "What do you mean by the black rabbit?" Yeah. But no, I don't know.
You don't know. No. No, I was thinking it was about, I don't know, maybe some metaphor that I don't know of. Maybe it was really well. Then
I could
afterwards,
ask her.
yeah, I could ask her. The Question, the Curse was the first song. What were other songs that you say? Well, those were some sort of those songs anchored the album and anchored the sound that we wanted to go into.
Also Beneath, that our second release, our second single, because it's a more kind of another side of Delain. We know we work with a lot of orchestral elements, but we also work with synthesizer elements. And I love the 80s as well. And you know, those kind of elements you can find back in there. And I think it's a very striking part of what makes the music of Delain Delain.
Yeah.
So that's a good song. And also, of course, with that song, as I earlier mentioned, the lyrics and the meaning behind it. But of course, yeah, this is the artist coming with the predictable answer. All songs contribute to it. Yeah,
that's true, but that's my job then. I've learned to breathe beneath the waters. This song, well, for me, the travel that you did, it was a hard time, but you weren't still out of the hard times. It was difficult, but somehow you learned to deal with it. Is that something that described Beneath?
Yes, absolutely. Wow, you're good. Yeah, no, true. Because you know what doesn't break you makes you stronger, and you have to learn to deal with situations, and here that was certainly the case. And there were things that also stayed the same, and there were things that were totally different. The funny thing is, what people might not expect. The writing process of the album to me was kind of business as usual, because yeah, I worked so long with Guus, and of course we missed Charlotte, because also Charlotte, she, first of all, she's a very gifted lyricist, but of course she also developed into a very talented musician writing music in the later stages of Delain. But set aside from that missing element, the way of working was very much the same. So yeah, there were things that were different, and also things that stayed the same. And yeah, and also working with people that I didn't work with for a long time, Sandra and Ronald, it felt very much coming at home again. But working with Diana and Ludo, of course, is completely new, and you have to learn to deal with that. And also another thing, completely different aspect. Learn to deal with people having an opinion about you on social media, which is of course not always fun, because social media, yeah, you know, people have opinions really quickly without having all perspectives, and sometimes that's difficult. But again, that's also part of my job.
What was the thing when you read those social media comments? Was there something that really hurt you, or that the perception of people was really different with your perception?
Well, first of all, people thought that I fired the previous band members because I wanted to make it a project again. I wanted to get back in control. But the thing was, I was never out of control, and only after our search to find a solution together, only after they left, then yeah, we had to make decision. Okay, what are we going to do about the future of Delain? And of course, during such a process, you also think of possibilities and scenarios, but only when the reality is there of, okay, we're not continuing together, and what am I going to do? Am I going to stop? That's one scenario. Am I going to continue? That's a completely different reality than what people think.
Was it hard for you to actually to hear those comments, that you were more or less the bad guy?
Yes, sometimes yes, but yeah, that's a very good example. I learned to deal with it, and yeah, you know, that's always how it goes. That somebody needs to be blamed, and for some people that was me, but you know, that's again, I had to remember it's part of my job. You will get criticized if you present yourself to the world. You cannot expect that everything is nice and dandy all the time. That's a consequence you have to accept.
Yeah. How hard was it? How long did it take for you to cope with it?
Well, the thing was, of course, I was also dealing with a burnout, so I wasn't always focusing on this part because I had other more urgent things to deal with as well. So and also sometimes you shouldn't look at social media. I'm actually not a big fan of social media in general. It's of course it has a lot of pros and it has a lot of cons as well, but it's not my hobby, so to say.
Okay. Beneath, there was another song that I thought maybe another line that I thought was combined with Beneath. Mirror of Night. Ruud plays with you. The Dying Dreams I Never Reached. Were there some dying dreams that you never reached throughout the last 20
That's
or 20
a good
years?
question. What dying dreams did I never reach? Well, of course, before the split, you try to work it out, and you have dreams on how you can continue together, and that didn't happen, and so that dream died, and is now beyond reach. Yeah. So I think that's a very good example. But it can be anything in life, of course. It can also, yeah.
And what made you decide to ask Ruud for this song?
Actually, a very practical reason. No, the thing was, with Delain, we don't work in a classic way that you write everything, then you go into a studio, and then you mix everything. That's not how we work. We do it more the modern way, like also happens in dance and trance, for example, that you work per song. And with this particular song, when it needed to be mixed, there was a deadline for the mix. And both Guus, who records guitars, and also Ronald, our guitar player, who also recorded guitars, they were both not there. It was a summer vacation time. And I thought, I need the song finished. And I had to think of Ruud. Ruud was just a couple of weeks before going on a American tour with Within Temptation. And he said, yeah, I still have time to do this. And I have a big connection with Within Temptation, as you know. So it was very easy for me to reach out. And I'm really happy that he was willing to help out. And I think he did a great job at it as well. Yeah.
Was it something did your brother, because he also stepped down more or less within Temptation, he assumed a different role a few years ago? Was it something that, what happened to you that you could discuss with him?
Sure. Yeah, of course. It's family. You discuss those things with family. And I have the luxury that I have a brother that is in music and knows a lot about it as well. So absolutely. And he really helped me. I'm really grateful for it. Give advice and support and yeah, so that's wonderful. But also other people around me that are musicians and yeah.
Is there one thing that he said about, recording this album that you, that still comes to your mind when you think about it?
No, about the recording of the album itself, not, because somehow we always keep that very separate. Okay. So we when we see each other, or for example, I'm at his place and he has something to let me hear, to show me, then he let me hear it, and the other way around too. Sometimes I send him something. And that's fun, but for the rest, we when we talk about those things or I need advice, it's more for the things around it, but not the musical part of it.
Yeah. And of course, your dad too.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, because he is in legal, right? Yeah.
Well, he's an accountant.
Accountant. Right.
So of course, the band is also a company, and he has a lot of knowledge about company structures, and that's for music lovers, not a very interesting topic, but sadly, it's also very needed when you are a musician. So I'm also very blessed with that, and he knows also a lot about the music industry with that. So that's my luck. Yeah,
That's good. Luckily, twice then within your family.
Absolutely.
What is there a song for you? You say, well, this is for me a special song because of this reason, because of a reason, a more personal reason. If you, the 10 songs on the album?
Yeah, again, I think it's the question occurs simply because it reminds me of the April Rain era, because actually Ronald, in this song, Ronald contributed with the guitar riff, and we had some growls in there, and to have him present there again, and also together with Ludo, and they sing together, and then Diana, it gives me the ultimate band vibe, and I love that, and it feels like, yeah, taking off from the April Rain era. Yeah.
Is that the era that you like the most too?
No, because I think all eras in Delain's history have their charm. And I shared a lot of good moments with a lot of good people who were present at those eras. So yeah.
No, I mean music-wise for you, because
Music-wise, no. I think music-wise, I like the last two albums the most, I think. Yeah, but that's also can also be a predictable answer, because you evolve as a musician, and of course that's closer to where you are now.
Yeah. The cold. I am awaiting the sunrise. Is the sunrise for you? Are they in your life now? Sunrise?
Yes. In my life, it's 11 o'clock in the morning in a nice summer day. Yes. Yeah. No, it's definitely, I feel that I've landed again, and I'm in a very good place right now, and I'm so grateful for it. Yeah.
And if you look back on recording and writing of this album, when did this feeling come about for you? Was it at the beginning already, or maybe halfway?
Well, the writing was very therapeutic as well, but I think at the mixing of the album, when everything is coming together and is taking shape, that's the moment. And also when releasing, it's funny, we released the first single in August, but the album wasn't ready yet. We finished the album in October. So I think in August this all came together, and or actually also in June, because we did tryout shows in June, and we invited fans to come over, and it was really special, also emotional, because it was the first time being on stage. And I remember being on stage and having some tape in my hand, some duct tape, and I said, I am allowed to put this on my keyboard stand again, and I'm on stage again, and then the Delain songs coming to life again for the very first time with fans looking at us, and I think that's when the sun really began to shine with those fans. Yeah.
Two other collaboration on this album, Paolo Ribaldini. What did he bring to Beneath and Invictus?
Yeah, a lot. I love his voice. He has really this 80s kind of vibe in his voice, and he reminds me of people like Dio, and yes, this classic power metal voice, and that gives a lot of contrast. And I always love to have such a voice on our music. Of course, we have Marko for years already. We're going to talk about in a moment, I'm sure. But yeah, also Paolo. And there was a time that I was even considering not coming back with a female singer, but a male singer. And Paolo would have been a candidate for that. But eventually, I thought, no, it's more fitting. And Delain needs a female singer, but yeah, we very organically stayed in touch, and he kept being involved in the process. So it was wonderful to have him there.
Yeah. Well, Marko, you already mentioned him.
Yeah.
What makes him such a good voice for you? for Delain?
Oh, he has so much power, character, identity, and also some roughness in his voice. That I love that. And the funny thing is, of course, he also went through a very difficult period himself around the same time I did, and we also had contact about that. And so it was great to have him on the album again. And also that felt like coming home because, of course, yeah, as you know, he was on a lot of Delain albums already in the past. So he's really another Delain DNA element there. I love his voice, and it always, everything he does comes back as a surprise, but fits so well.
What do you mean by that, surprise? If you look, for example, at this song, what did surprise you? What he did?
Yeah, it surprised me because you try to imagine up front how it would sound. You know his voice, you know the song, but somehow he always catches me off guard. Like ooh, he does an extreme thing here, and then I hear it in the mix. Yeah, fits brilliantly. It fits so well and gives a punch. Always gives a punch to the song.
Okay. What are your plans right now?
The plans right now are releasing the album and then slowly start up the live machine again, start touring again. This year we take it a bit easy still, partially because of COVID after effects. A lot of bands are touring, but also I want to take the band along, especially the new members, give them the time to gear it up slowly. And also for myself, I got into a burnout, and I always loved playing live, but we at a certain point we did 100 shows a year. That's a bit too much for me. So we're taking it up. A couple shows are already announced, but a lot more shows are in the making. So it's taking the album and also the old albums on the road again. Yeah.
Last question. What was it like for you to work with Ronald and Sandra again? Yeah,
fantastic. Yeah, we didn't have had time off in between. It felt very coming at home. Yeah. Sander is a really good friend of mine, and Ronald too, and we kept in touch, and it really fits their lives again. They left because it didn't fit their life anymore, and they had other things to pursue, getting children, getting job opportunities, and now they're 40. And when you're 30, it's always kind of a crossroad, and now they are settled, and this complements their lives brilliantly. So it's fantastic. Yeah.
And now at 40, you can more or less follow your heart again.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, I think that's something, because sometimes people think, well, I have to do this, I have to do that. But I think in the end, you come back to what you really love to do.
Absolutely. You're so right with that. Yeah.
Last question. Is there one line of the album that your wife wrote that you thought, well, she really surprised me with that?
That's a difficult question. I would say that actually, very cliche, is not a line, but the album title, because it's so all capturing. Dark waters. It's coming from a dark place, and things have been made in that dark place and are now coming to the surface. And in this case, that's a very good thing. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Martijn.
Thank you very much too.